Okay, so the answer is we could do this in two different ways, and it's really up to the Mishtatfim what they prefer. Do we prefer to stel zich on one detail of the Mamer and get into it, or do we prefer more of a general synopsis on the Hemshech Inyanim of the Mamer to try and get where the Mamer is going?
I think a general synopsis, because the Mamer seems to have a single nekuda that it's trying to bring out, which I'm still trying to figure out what that nekuda is.
Right. Okay. Okay. So let's do it like that. Yeah. All right. So that will be it's just because we're dealing with a lot of heavy things in the Mamer. So there will be a lot of loose ends in the end, but what we want to do is basically just get what's the overarching theme, what's the message of the Mamer. So let's begin with just a few points which need clarification, and then we'll get into it. The Rabbi begins with a question in the beginning of Mitziv base in this Hanocha. The question is, what is it that there is the Oitzer HaMelech? The Melech has Oitzeres, has treasures, which he doesn't give out, even for his own tzrachim, for his own uses. Now, after if he comes to a situation where in battle, then he's going to use his oitzer. So the question of the Rabbi is, what does it mean that the Melech has a oitzer, which he's not using? What does it mean that he has tzrachim? That's the first question. What does it mean that he has tzrachim, which is like, for some reason, those tzrachim are not good enough for him to waste his oitzer, but there's something deeper which does necessitate the oitzer. In other words, what's bothering the Rebbe is the very concept that the Eibishter has tzrachim, has needs. And then there's a deeper thing which is higher than those needs. So he wants clarification in that. So the problem is that this is a question, but he just leaves it off. It doesn't really come back to answering it. So somehow or another, the theme of this Mamer is supposed to be settling that problem. So that's just one thing. Then there's the actual Mamer beginning in Siv Gimel, where the Rebbe goes into the difference between the way it is with Mitzad Atzmei and what happens when the is a Keli for Moir. And possesses in it not just that he's Bli Gvul, that he's Ein Le Seif, but he also has the quality of Ein Le Tchila. The mile of Ein Le Tchila is that it's Atzmi. Meaning, by definition, Ein Seif is something which you could have Nivraim, which are Ein Seif. You could have many things which are Ein Seif. It's endless. It's infinity. But the musag of Ein Seif in Alakus comes from the Ein Seif of Atzmus. And Ad Kedei Kach, that has the Inyan for Atzmus, that even has the Ein Le Tchila, which obviously could only be in Atzmus itself, because only Atzmus is something which is not called Me'aheder, which is not something which didn't exist and then began to exist for some reason. Fine. That's the Vart over here. And the way the Rabbi explains it is that there's a Kecher Yesh Me'ayin in the Eir, even though the Eir itself is not Mitziusim Atzmusei, still he has the Kecher of Mitziusim Atzmusei in there. Fine. This is the Vart. The Rebbe continues how this idea you could see in Lifnei HaTzimtzum in Sfiras Ein Ketz, in La'acher HaTzimtzum in Eir, the way it's in Sfiras Ta'atzilis, and then even in Nivraim you see the Chazakim Kiyem Hibarim. you see how in the Nivraim you have the Blikvul of the Nivra. So it's clear that the Rebbe is doing something over here which is not the regular Havana in the Mamer. The way I would understand the Mamer in Bepashtos, in Bosi Legani Toshin Yud, over there is discussing that the Eir is Lamata Adin Tachlis, the Eir reaches everywhere. But he's not talking about that the Eir has in it the Ein Leitchila. That's something new that the Rebbe is doing this year. So we have to clarify what's the point and how do we get there. That's the second thing. So first of all, we began with what's the question? What's the question of the Eitzer? What's bothering the Rebbe and how's the Mamer going to answer it? And then what's the point of this Mamer that it's has in it, the Eir has in it also the Ein Leitchila, the Kecha Etz. Then, finally, towards the end of the Mamer, the Rebbe begins the way it is in Aveda. How does this work in Aveda? That the idea of Shabbos, which is Tainuk, and which is Menucha, and in order to understand how Menucha could work together with the Vart of the Magid, of being ayin, of changing the world to ayin. So let's just clarify that. There's a word of the Baal Shem Tov that the Nekuda of Aveda is Menucha Shabbos. There's a word of the Magid which says that the idea of Aveda is to turn from yesh to ayin. So somehow the Rebbe is bothered, but these two things don't work together well. But through the word of this Mamer, turning yesh into ayin and the idea of Menucha will work together. They can synchronize. This is going to be how our Maimah works. So again, the question is how? What was the problem, and how's our Maimah the solution? Where are we going with this? Okay, so those are 3 points which hopefully we're going to be able to deal with as we go through this Maimah. So far, so good. Reb Shalom. Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, okay. So that's the structure a bit, but there seems to be a nekuda, as you said yourself, a nekuda that runs through the entire Maimah that the Rebbe is trying to explain. Correct? That this idea of
right, so we haven't gotten there yet. This is just Agdam. Yeah. Okay. So the question is, what's the nekuda of the Maimah? And once we get the Nukuda, then we could work our way backwards and start dealing with different details as much as we'll be able to get. So let's begin with right at the end of Sif Aleph. There's a very interesting line, which a lot of people have noticed this year, and it's clearly something new. The Rebbe is deviating from the original idea, the way it's in Bosi Legani Toshin Yud, and he's adding in a new line. It says like this, that we have the Eibishter gives the Eitzres, and generally speaking, with Lolos, him Eitzres stumim, aber Akavone hi dafke lefteich eisam. These Eitzres have to be opened, v'achar kach losses eisam ela mekablin, v'anesina tia be'efen de tzorcha hatev lo tiftach. The way this has to be given to us is an eifan of tzorcha hatev lo. Hainu sham mekabel yargish zeu tev shalei. B'yachdim hayesin nimshach meitzres astum shem lamay. The idea over here is that the Yid should feel that the Eitzer is good and it's his good. Like the Bavusta Vort, instead of reading Eitzarcha Hatev Lanu Tiftach, we read Eitzarcha Hatev Lanu Tiftach, that it's our good. Now, this line, or this knech, that it's Hatev Lanu, that it's the Eitzer is going to be revealed good, is a Chiddush which the Rabbi is saying over here in Tavshin Chav Beis, which is not in the original Tavshin Yud. And not only is it not in the original, it actually goes against the grain of everything Tavshin Yud wants to say. We're mamash making a revolution in this line. Why? So let's first get clear what's the point of the Mamer, the original Bosi in Tafshin Yud, and then we'll have an appreciation of what the Rebbe is doing over here. The Nekuda in Tafshin Yud is like this. Every Yid has a kayach, a oitzer in Aved. How does this oitzer work? So the oitzer, by definition, is in helam ha'atzim. It's be'etzem sosum v'nelam. It's closed. Meaning to say, just like in a person, there's keichsa gluyim, which is his meichin, his midas. You could have higher than that. You could have like his pshitas hanefesh, the rotzen of the person is nisgale. You could have a ava bligvul. You could have a simcha. You could have things which are lamayla mitam v'das. But that's all what we call gilui. It could be a gilui bligvul, but it's still always going to be something which could be appreciated. We could speak about it in our terms. In fact, the very fact that we're going to say it's something which we don't understand is in itself, in our words, like the greatest compliment. That you're going to walk out with more of a derech, it's more of appreciation for this bligvul. It's like beyond our hagbalas. Because it's so reich and it's so powerful, it's more powerful than something which we could contain. But then there's a deeper place in the person, which is deeper than bligvul, and that is the I. And I, the very etzem of the person, is not bligvul, he just is. He just is. And that can also not be measured in being rich or endless. It just is. Like the moment a person is born, he just exists. He does exist and does not exist. That's the etzem of life. Likewise, kaviochel, we say lamayla. There is the way the Eibishter comes into gvul. The Eibishter runs the world and is mashpia on the world. Then there is the Eibishter, the way is believable. Seviv kol almin. There's Eir in Sof, and there's a whole arichis in the Mamer that the Eir in Sof lamayla is lamata adin tachlis. And that goes through a few prakim in Tafshin Yud explaining by arichis gedela the lamata adin tachlis. And the idea of lamata adin tachlis is that Eir reaches everywhere and it comes into every level. And it remains bli gvul, even though he's coming into gvul. That's the idea of Eir. However, he says in Tafshin Yud, that's not the etzem. The Eitzer Elyon is higher than Lamata Adin Tachlis. The Eitzer Elyon is the etzem Eir. And that is be'etzem behelam. And that's impossible to be revealed by definition. This Eitzer Elyon is what the Eibishter gives every Yid. What does it mean he gives it to him? If it's not revealed, in what way is he getting it? So the answer is that he's getting it in a Aveda of a Atzmistik Aveda. He's going to be working in a Eifen of Netzach. How the Yid is not going to appreciate. He's not going to celebrate his Yiddishkeit. He's just going to be. He's going to be so strong in his Yiddishkeit. It's not shaykh otherwise. And that's it. And that's the power of going out to battle. When a soldier goes out to battle, the consistency, the tenacity, the never changing, not giving in, standing up to all conditions, doesn't come from an appreciation or some kind of dereher. It just, he is so strong, he just is. So on the one hand, it's the lowest of all the keiches, but he comes from this place of etzem. This is the point in Tafshin Yud. So the Eitzer Elyon is closed, is Helam, and that's the whole arichis, And this Hellendige thing is what's coming down Lamata, that this person also holds a nation of Helen. And the fact that you have a Yid who in Golus or in a personal Golus who doesn't understand anything and still sticks it through, continues, perseveres, that's from Netzach. That comes from the Eitzer Elyon. It's a gift which is being given. Fine. So Lefize, the whole point of saying that the Eibishter is Lamata Adin Tachlis, there's the Ein Sof, which is Lamata Adin Tachlis, is all a way of bringing out what the Eitzer is not. In the Hemshech Tovshin Yud, there's a whole arichas about Lamata Adin Tachlis. And he's saying the Eitzer Elyon is not Lamata Adin Tachlis. He's not Gilu Bligvul. The Eitzer Elyon is higher than Gilu. He's Behelen. It's Lamayla Adin Kates. Lamayla Adin Kates means that he becomes Mis'alam Ba'atzmuseh. He is Be'etzem removed and is not Begeder Gilu. That's the Eitzer. Comes the Rebbe over here in Mamer and says that this Eitzer Elyon is going to be Hatev Lanu, is going to be appreciated. It's going against everything the Maimon of Shiyudas wants to say. We're doing over here something totally new.
Rabbi Klyne, what's Lamata Adin Tachlis? What's Lamata Adin Tachlis in the original?
In that the air is believable, and not just that air is believable, but air comes into every level of Gevul. So air will come into Spheres, air will even come into Nivroim. You will find air everywhere. The Blikvul could be the Chazakim Kemi Baram. So you could have the Blikvul in the Nivroim. Thus Lamata Adin Tach is coming into every place. Lamayla Adin Kates is the way he's removed, he's impossible to be in his God. And that's the Eitzer.
Okay.
Yeah. So over here, the Rebbe is like taking a whole new day. It's confusing. Now we'll see that this is we're not just nitpicking on one line. This is clearly a Yesod which the Rebbe is taking a new direction in understanding Lamata Adin Tachlis. And this is going to be running like a silver thread throughout the Mamer, explaining how the Eira Blikvul, the idea of Lamata Adin Tachlis, is not only the way it is in Tovshin Yud, as a Hakdama to explain what Eitzer Elyon is not. But the Rebbe is going to be saying that the Lamata Adin Tachlis is another way of bringing out the Blikvul of the Eibush, of the bringing out the Eitzer Elyon. And it's necessary to have Lamata Adin Tachlis in order for the Eitzer Elyon to come to us properly. Okay. How is this? So, without getting stuck too much in the Gufa Maimir, but in the Maimir we say there's Eir and there's Etzem. So let's just make it clear what's the difference between Eir or Blikvul or Ein Seif and Ein Leitchil. We have in our world a concept of Teichen. Everything we take could only be taken in a certain by how deep it is, how strong it is, how much is it telling. That's the things have weight. So I'm going to tell me that this house is a good house. So you're going to tell me why? For what's it useful for? Does it bring space? Does it bring beauty? Is it long lasting? What do you have to offer to give you validity? To give what do you have? Certainly, if we're talking in a ruchnistic thing, what's a svara? So a good svara is a svara that you can't say otherwise. A good svara is a svara that answers many kashas. The more this svara is solving, it's a broader svara. The deeper it's reaching in Haskalah, so that shows that as a depth. That's the way everything is measured. Now, generally speaking, this is the idea of Eir. Eir is Gilu. The more things are, so what do you mean I have more Eir? Eir is like the pshitis, the bligvul of this. It's that, obviously we take things in Eifin of Gvul, but let's say you would have richness or strength or bligvul, let's say what's Ein Sof? That's impossible to stop. It can't ever not be, because it's so strong. It can't. That's how Reich is. So that's how bligvul is in our language. So if you're going to ask a person, what's more, gvul or bligvul? Bligvul is obviously it's more. What exists more? What has a stronger existence? Of course, bligvul. That's Eir. Then there's a totally different kind of metzius, which is the concept of mechuyev metzius. Mechuyev metzius is that I be'etzem exist. Not for any reason. I don't stand for anything. I don't have any teichen. What does it mean that ein leitchila? Ein leitchila is not an historical fact that it's technically no point in time when I didn't begin to exist. Ein leitchila means and I don't have any reason to be. Therefore, I can't ever not be. Whenever anything finishes, the reason is because whatever was causing he should be has run out. But Ein Leitchila means I just am. Just is. What? Nothing. That's something which we can't understand. Because any way we'll take something, it will always be with looking to have more of the derech eretz for it. Okay, so in what way are you great? What's great? What are you? But that's again going to be a compromised way of taking Mechuyev HaMetzias. Mechuyev HaMetzias, he's not great. He just is. That's etzem. That's why the only dogma for Mechuyev HaMetzias, for Metziusim Atzmusei in our world is in Gashmis. What's Gashmis? So you could talk about the richness of the table, or the beauty, or the strength, or the size. Or then you could talk, he just is. He's here. I can't take him away. He's here. That is something which exists only in Gashmis. Just is. Before we talk what? The fact that he exists. That etzem ha-metzius is the metziusim ha'atzmusei, which we have in Gashmis. We say this is some kind of amchoshe. It's a way of giving us some kind of derher, what it means mechuyev ha-metzius in atzmus. It just is. But the way he is not that is faran, meaning his way of existence isn't the way we understand existence. That he has to exist in some way. He doesn't need that. So he doesn't have any reason to be, meaning he doesn't stand for anything. So he can't stop being. If you don't start, you can't stop. That's Ein Leitchila. There's actually even a loshen b'negei atzmus as mitziusei is not neither. Says in Eir we say that mitziusei is neither but not muhusei. Or in atzmus we say even mitziusei is not neither. Fragt sich the kasha, what do you mean that mitziusei is not neither? We just spoke about him. I just said that he exists. So the answer is that what we're saying also we're taking wrong. If somebody after
what does it mean mitziusei is not noiga?
Noida with the dalet. We don't know that he exists. But we don't know. I'm saying we're talking about it. What are we doing? You don't know that he exists. Whatever we know is not it. Because for us, it's going to be impossible to take it without thinking about that it's great. V'haraya, after this whole drasha, if someone's going to ask you, no, so what's a bigger metzius? Atzmus or Eir? You say, for sure, Atzmus. So Ebaze, you got it wrong. Ebaze the Shenish does because we've already lost the plot, and it's impossible. It's impossible for us to climb out of this Metzius. So we could only know that we don't know. That's the only way to talk about this. But there is such a concept. Where only in Yemei Mashiach will there be such a musik of knowing it. Zeh. You know, the Mizak that there was Iber Chacham, somebody came over to the Rebbe Rashab, and he said he has a question, a trick question for the Rebbe. He says that everything he hears, it says in Chassidus, everything has a makar l'mayla. You could find a source for everything in this world. So he said, what's the makar of apikursis? So he's going to be stuck now. He's going to say that Sadar makar, so Muzayn as apikursis is legitimate. So the Rebbe said, what the makar of apikursis is that it's true. Was sagt apikursis? As is nicht voran. It's not true, as nicht voran. What apikursis is saying is the most correct statement to say about the Eibishter. Is nicht voran. What are you saying? He doesn't exist, like what you think existence means. Richtig. You don't need a makar, it's true. Meaning, Atzmos is something which there's no way to have any shaykhs to such a thing. That's the touch, ein leitchil. He doesn't begin. Okay. This inyan, obviously by definition, can't be revealed. So the Rebbe comes in our Mamer and wants to argue that yes, Eir is going to reveal this. The Ein L'Tchila is going to exist in the Eir. And that's what we're going to see throughout the Eir, which we say that Eir is Lamata Adin Tachlis. In Tovshin Yud, we're describing Eir. Zok the Rebbe, really what's happening over here is that in this Eir there exists Atzmus. And this is all a Eir which is carrying the power of Atzmus, the Bligvul of Atzmus. Eir has Bligvul for itself? No. The real makar for Ein Seif comes from Atzmus. And the Rebbe proves it in various ways. You could see that the Eir creates Yesh Me'ayin. So obviously he possesses the power of Metzius and Atzmus. So Eir has in it the Etzem. One of the ways to Ad Kedei Kach that we see is Chazachim Kiyem Ibarim. We see that our world, we see a Nitzchius or a Tmidius in the Teva. By definition, the way Teva is built is that it should fizzle out. It's impossible for something of Gvul to carry a Bli Gvul Keich. The Pashtus, a car which only has a certain size can't take gas Bli Gvul. He's only going to be able to carry as much as his tank allows. So any Nivra which is Mugbal and Mokin is only going to be able to have Chayis which is Mugbal. He can't have Chayis which is Bligvul. So if you're Mugbal and Mokin, you're going to have to be Mugbal and Zman. So the way the world should be is constantly receding. It should be that as every generation passes, so first of all, the physical world should be becoming shvacher. The world should be slowly disintegrating, should be disappearing. Like we see, Tinik Mishanei, Mascheles Yabesh, a child from the second he's born, begins to die, so to speak. I mean, literally, if you take a 50-year-old person to the doctor, they'll tell you that there's so many years left to life. If you take a baby, they'll tell you there's more years. Because a person doesn't die suddenly. It's slowly, his guf is becoming older and is becoming shvacher. So that's the way the world should be. The fact is, though, that the world's kayam and beish. The world exists. It's not becoming shvacher. So there's obviously some kayach ein sof. Even more than that, we see that in the mean, you see that there's a bligvul. If everything is mugbul, so it should be becoming, every generation should be shvachim. The fact is that potentially, at least, every person could have deiris bligvul coming from him. Because my son is not smaller or less than me. So my son's son is also not going to be less or smaller. So there's no reason for it ever to stop. So every person has in him a keach bligvul. Not just a keach bligvul. I have a keach bligvul to create bligvul, because from me is going to come a son, and this son is also going to have a deiris bligvul from him, potentially. Technically, there'll never be a point where there's deiris bligvul, obviously, because at any point when you'll stop and count, there will be a certain number. But in Havana, there should never be any, and it should never end. It's endless. Kumtos, that a libe de emes, there's a bligvul in the bri. Sagt man that this bligvul must come from the air. And in other places, in the Chelik Yud Zayin, in the Tazriya Chedesh, the Rebbe touches is clearly, this comes from the Leishanisi of Atzmus. It comes from the fact that Atzmus doesn't change, and therefore, in the Nivra, we see the blig, that it doesn't change, the bligvul. That's the Chazachim Kemi Baruch. And likewise, without getting now involved in all the details of the Mamer, this is the overarching message of the Mamer, that the etzem is coming begolui in the air. Lefize, before we continue, any questions? Somebody wants to comment?
So what we're saying is, basically, the Rebbe is coming and saying here that anything that's bleak vul, the shorish of bleak vul is ein tchila.
Yeah.
You can't have bleak vul with a tchila. The only way you can have a bleak vul with a tchila is because you have within you the Eibishter, so to say, put into something that has a tchila, put in the characteristic of ein tchila.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's summarize now. Let's go back to how we started. We had this issue with what's the Eitzar Chahatayv Lanu. What's this business that the Eitzer is becoming good in our revealed good? The Eitzer should remain closed, and that's the whole point of the Eitzer, that it's Helam Ha'atzmi, and it expresses itself in Netzach, which is the union of Helam. Which is not, he's the soldier. He doesn't have any derher or any havana in alakus. Zok der Rebbe, no. That's the way it is in Tafshin Yud. But in Tafshin Chav Beis, we take over here a turn. The idea of Lamata Adin Tachlis, what's the idea of Eir? Is not just to bring out as Hakdome, and you should know that the Eitzer is higher than this. This is one of the ways that Eitzer is going to come. That the Eitzer is going to come in a revealed way. The idea of Eir is to bring the Ein Leitchila, that there's going to be a Keich HaEtzem in Eir. And therefore it's going to be a Eitzar Chatev Lanu. Our good. Now, just for clarity, this may sound like a psatera, you mishtalt sich on a psaline. But
Yossi, I'm sorry to go back a second. Would it be right to say that, this concept that the Rebbe brings out over here, that to have ein saif in something that has a tchila, we have to imbue into that element ein loy tchila, that normally we would have always understood it to be that the Eibishter granted this thing the power of Ein Saif, right? That the Eibishter gave them something that has a tchila. The Eibishter gave them the power of Ein Saif. Like the Eibishter endowed into human beings the power of Ein Saif to have Haylada ad Ein Saif. Here the Rebbe this whole concept is l'chayra chiddush, right? That to get to Ein Saif, no, we're not saying the Eibishter gave you Ein Saif. The Eibishter is actually imbuing them with the power of Ein Lo Tchila, right? It's a whole new concept. It means, so we're saying that the Eibishter is imbuing into them, like you say, the Kayach Etzem itself. The Etzem itself is Ein Lo Tchila. So we're imbuing into these things the Kayach Etzem of Ein Lo Tchila with Diktik in the fact that Ein Lo Saif. Would that be correct? What's happening here?
Yes. It's much more complex. We're trying to walk between the raindrops over here without getting stuck. Yeah, every word we say, we get stuck. But really, there's two ideas over here which we're mixing in. I don't think we should get involved in it, but I'll just say in one word that there's two ideas. There's the fact that Ein Sof, that gets his Ein Sof from Atzmus, and that's something which it says in Samach Vav. That's the word of the Rebbe Rashab. That the emissary concept of Ein Sof is Dafke in Atzmus. Kilo Neymar, the Ein Sof of is only a technical Ein Sof. It's like technically the Eibishter could make that won't finish. But that's not the real concept of Ein Sof. So the Musar of Ein Sof is where it says is Amitis Inyan Ein Sof he's getting from Atzmus. Then there's a new word that Atzmus gives him also in Letchil. That's already a whole new word. So generally speaking, it's one idea that the Etzem is expressing itself in there. And this is the message of our Mamer. Now, what's very interesting is that there was a letter the day after the Mamer. Tavshin Chov Beis, Yud Aleph Shvat. I don't have it in front of me. Maybe if somebody could find it online, it's in Igris Chelek Chov Beis. You could probably find it online, Reb Sholem. I don't know how to do these things, but it's a fascinating letter. Ja, we Chelek Chov Beis.
I have one here. Chiluk Beis.
Chiluk Beis. So I believe it's I don't know the page number, but basically it goes to chronological order. So if you find the letter from Yud Aleph Shvat, Tavshin Chov Beis. Oh, Ramosha or just shared the link, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, I've tried to find the page. Keep going. No.
Okay. Could you do a screen share? How does it work?
We'll find it just.
Yes, Moshe. That's
I have a page Kuf Yutes.
Right. There's a few letters. There's also Kuf Chav Aleph, Kuf Chav Beis. There's a few letters. Probably this one.
Page.
Ramesha, a computer technician, you should be able to know how to do screen share.
I'm here with the big expert. I'm the Katam Chavura. Kuf Yutes?
There's one of them.
Okay, what do you want me to screen share? Share screen. The host disable participant screen sharing.
What do I do? Hold on.
I don't remember.
Now you're asking me to do something. Yeah. Oh, okay. Try now.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. So,
okay. So just one page earlier. Could we go just? So look at that. I'm just going to read out the words.
I can do that also. That's to be fair. Don't just read the words.
Yeah. So the Rebbe says over here, and it's just sometimes you read the Mamer and you're not sure if Taka the Rebbe is saying it's a major chiddush over here. That the idea of Ein Sof Lamata Den Tachlis is in the Ein Sof is going to be the Eitzer Elyon. But Pashtos, the Eitzer Elyon is not in the Ein Sof Lamata Den Tachlis. Stafke in the Lamaila Den Kates, in the Etzem. That's the way it's in Tavshin Yud. but the Rebbe is doing over here that in the Ein Sof get Nizgala während der Eitzer. So let's read the Lashon. Yehiratzen, Shas Cholos V'reish Perek Shnei Moshe Shalhem Shech Bosi Legani, Yizgala Ein Sof Lamata Adi in Tachlis, Ubozeh Yizgala Gam Ken Eitzer de Lamayim. It says it clearly. Now, if we could go to the next page, Ramesha, it finishes off that this the Abish gives through the Sareh Pkidei Achayil. V'hihi kol zeh b'teiv anir v'aniklek mishikosu yiftach havay lechos yitzar yatev. Chakasha yitzar chatev lo notiftach. So it's clearly saying that in the air is going to be nizgala the etzem, meaning in the ein leitchil, in the lemata mata adin tachlis, we're going to have the Yitzraelim, and this is the passion. This is the point of our Mamer. Okay. What's even more interesting is that before Yud Shvat, the Rebbe would always send a telegram. So there's the lotion of the telegram is printed in the kavitz in the Bosi Legani from Lahak. This kavitz, he uses the lotion. His svadus pila or lenatzel kideboyi ha'eitzres tevim shemevazvezim lo. You should take advantage, use properly the good eitzres that are being squandered on us. This lashon eitzres tevim is not a lashon of Chassidus. In Tafshin Yud, there's no such thing as eitzres tevim. There's the eitzre elyon, there's the eitzres hamelech, there's the eitzre akomus. Good eitzres, nishdazazach. So it's clear that the Rebbe already before Yud Shvat, as a Hagdami, gave already a taste, a sneak peek of the Mamer. What's going to be happening in Tavshach of Beis is that it's going to be good eitzres. The whole part of this Mamer is as the etzem is going to be begol. Okay. So let's now just go to see the words of the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and then we'll wrap it up. The Baal Shem Tov says that the whole idea of Aveda is Menucha. What's Pshat Menucha? So maybe Behektim, let's ask a simple question, a klot question. We know that a person could work hard the whole day and he could feel fatigue, could feel tired. So he goes to sleep and he wakes up rejuvenated.
Yossi, I'm going to interrupt you a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No problem.
This whole point that you want to say that the Eitzer, this whole point of Eitzer Hartayv, but isn't that pshat that he opens up to Bikidei Achayil? That doesn't pshat the Mamer?
100%.
Okay, so what's the chiddush then that the Rebbe is saying that Eitzer Hartayv lanu?
No, but Pashto says that he's just giving it to Anshe Chayil, but it remains be'etzem a sosum thing. Meaning, we'll come back to it. I hear what you're saying. We'll come back to it when we wrap up. Okay. So we're holding over here by menucha. What's the idea of menucha? Of rest. So you see a person goes to sleep and he wakes up with new keiches. So the klotz kasha that every child has to ask is, where did these new keiches come from? Maybe a person is hungry and he eats. So there was vitamins, there's something in the food which I didn't have, and I filled up my tank. When it's like my car ran out of gas, you fill it up, and now it could drive. I didn't have kayach. I went to see, where did I go? What did I just get? So what's the answer? Is that obviously a person be'etzem, his etzem hanefesh is alive and never gets tired. There's no such thing as the etzem being tired. The etzem is be'etzem alive. Norvos. Once a person wakes up, so his nefesh is kilu neimar sending keiches to the guf, and then it slowly distances itself from the etzem nefesh, from the etzem achai. B'meila he becomes tired. Tired means disconnected from I. What's taich menucha? Rest. is that I am coming back to myself. I'm returning to my etzem. This is the idea of rest. In like you say in English, a person rests. He says, I come to. Ich bin zurückgekommen zu sich. I came back to myself. Because that's the truth. You just reconnected to my etzem, and that is the chai. So in conceptually, the idea of menucha is the way a person could experience his etzem. Now, bezer gufa, there's obviously madregas. So you could have when a person feels his menucha, which is like the second he sits down to feel menucha, and then there's the etzem inyan menucha, which is like when he doesn't even feel it, when he's just so connected to himself, to his etzem, that he just is. Like we discussed, what's the idea of etzem is that it's inexperienceable by definition. You know, actually the Rebbe once spoke about it. It's the same idea of menucha is very similar as tainug. Both are concept of Shabbos. Shabbos is tainug, menucha, it's connecting to the etzem. So in tainug also, you could have tainug murgish, you could have tainug bilti murgish. So even though nobody obviously ever experienced tainug bilti murgish because it's not murgish, it's not experienceable. But conceptually, I can understand that there must be such a thing. Because the point of tainug is to be I. The fact that it's murgish is obviously coming because there's friction with something other than I. I am leaving the out of I to get back into I, and that's the pleasure of the transition to connect to myself. A person which is be'etzem connected to himself, there's nothing to experience. He just is. But obviously that's the real tainug. Because that's pure tainug. That's tainug which is not being set against something else in order to experience it. It just is. So it's a theoretical concept. You have to be on that madrega to be so connected to myself, just to be. It's like saying, what's more pleasurable? The first moment of falling asleep, or like deep into your sleep? So obviously, deep intimate sleep, that's the real sleep. The problem is that nobody ever is around to talk about it because I can't experience that. The pleasure is the falling asleep. You know, or like you say, what's the geschmack of going on vacation? The first day or a week into vacation? A week into vacation, you forgot that you're on vacation. Even though obviously that's the real vacation. It's that you're forgetting you're on vacation. The first day is when you could sink into the couch and you just feel out that rega, the transition is the chitzonius of menucha. That is the way I could begin to experience menucha. But that itself is the problem because it's obviously not the menucha, the pure menucha. Yeah, we get the concept. Actually, the Rebbe once said that that's the difference between Friday night and Shabbos day. Shabbos day is the emes inyan of tainug, of atik. That's what we say to the Shabbos to the Dahisu does the atik kadisha. Atik is Shabbos by day. Friday night it's chakal tapuch kadishin. It's the aliyah sa'ilumis. So the Rebbe said, even though Shabbos day is a higher level of tainug, but he said fanoshim kerkeinu, Friday night is mugishmak. Because we're not on the level to be connected to be'etzem being in tainug. We could only experience the transition from the week to Shabbos.
There's Chassidus as well, no?
What?
The Rosa spoke about that there's a third level Shabbos, like a third level Shabbos day.
Shabbos afternoon.
That's yeah. Shabbos.
Right. Yeah, good. Das ist schon mamisch der Etzem. So, for Al Kopanim, what's the point over here is that Shabbos is the idea of menucha, connecting to Etzem. And that's the point of Aved, that Yid should connect to Etzem.
So complete this point, that the initial element, what does that show? Complete that point. Complete that point, that the beginning of it has an element. Complete that thought, please.
What do you mean the beginning? I'm not following.
You were bringing out the point that the beginning of something, even though it's not the tachlis, that's the point that we can experience. So finish bringing out that point.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that that from this inyan menucha, from a chitzonistic menucha, I could understand in Havana that be'etzem, the direction we're going to, is where's going to be real menucha, is Shabbos menucha l'chei elamim, the real menucha. Even though at that point there will be nothing to experience, so we could only see things in Giluyim dikayifana. Aber ich verstehe von dem, als da the inyan von Etzem. And this, said the Baal Shem Tov, is the whole Aveda. The whole Aveda is to come to this point of Shabbos, of Menucha. This is what we were looking to do. We want to get here. Fine. What's the problem? The Maggid said L'cheira a totally different word. He says the whole point of Aveda is to turn the world from Yesh to Ein. To take Gashmis and make it Ruchnis. What's Ein? Ein's not Etzem. Ein is Ruchnis. Ein is to bring in the Bligvul into the Bria, to show, to Bepashtos, you take a Chayfetz Gashmi, and to use it for Kedusha, is you just brought out that Nivreis L'Shamash Keni, you brought out his Matara, his Nitzitz Kedusha, you're bringing out a Gili of Alakus in the world. That's Ein. Ein is never Etzem. So L'chayre we have a stira. What's the point of Aveda? Ein or Etzem? Zogt der Rebbe, Lefi our Mamer, that's understood. Because in our Mamer, the air carries the Etzem. It's taka Ein. Aber Ein trokt in sich echet Etzem. So it's not stira to say that Aveda is turning from Yesh to Ein, and at the same time saying that what's in Ein is Tainuk. Is Menucha, is the Etzem. So that's the point at the end of the Maimar, how these two ideas of Etzem and Eir are not steered to each other. Because Adarabah, the whole word of our Maimar is Hatev Lonu Tiftach. As a Taka Eitzer se the Etzem, aber so kommt in Gilu. Let's just now.
What would be the Maggid's Chiddush then?
What?
What would be the Maggid's Chiddush adding to the Baal Shem Tov then?
Because we're saying that it comes into Eir. That's a very big Chiddush. To say that this comes into Eir is a pellet. To say that says Da'azazach Eir is Einzach. To say that the Etzem is carried in Eir, that's the Ufta of the Maggid over here, and in our context, that's going to be the Ufta of our Maimar. That's the direction that we want to go. Yeah. So let's just finish off the original question of the Maimar. What was the kasha of the Maimar? What does it mean that there's Tzarchei HaMelech, and what does it mean that there's higher than Tzarchei HaMelech? So what's bothering the Rebbe that there's Tzarchei HaMelech? So picking up on this theme of Etzem, what is a melech? In what way is a melech different to all other humans? A normal person is built in a way that he has his seichel, he has his midas, he has his needs. Now, he obviously also has the etzem, which very rarely comes out. So in his normal relationships, when I communicate with another person, I'm not. It's not just raw, pure I. It's you and me. We're communicating. There's what I want. There's what you want. And by definition, my midas give room for you. That's what midas are. My seichel gives space for you. He's looking to understand you. If you're going to trigger, if you're going to somehow touch the etzem, then I'll come out and there's nothing else, and at this point there's no space for anything else in the world, because the only thing is, let's say if you touch, you touch my child, so at that point, it will be, there's no room, there's no space for anything. But before that, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, he's a normal person. He relates with others and he gives space to others. However, the Melech, he's a person that his etzem is begoli the whole time. So there's never any space for anything else. What's this business that the Melech, man de mochve b'moche kame malke? Why? Because the Melech fills the room constantly. His etzem is begoli. So just like in a moment when my etzem is begoli, there's no space for you. But the Melech, that's how he lives. So even though the Seichel and Midas, it's not really that. He never shares his opinion. It's always a command, by definition. Because I said, therefore, if there's any tnu over here of not me, which is so you chayav misa. Because he doesn't relate to anything besides for himself. That is the concept of a melech. So be'etzem, every person has this. Every person is a atzmi. But you don't live like that. That's why I would say that the melech shouldn't really have tzrachim. Shouldn't need anything else. The concept of needing something means that there's another thing over here which I am missing, which is outside of me. The etzem is sholem. The etzem is just I. It can't be that I need anything. So the mela melech lamata. Okay, so he's also, besides for being a melech, he also there's a human side to him. But the concept of a melech lamayla, meaning by the Eibishter in Ein Sof, there's something else besides for him. What's it mean that he has tzrochim, which is not I? Wherever he is just I. L'chayr. So the answer is going to have to be that there is a musig of Eir. Besides for etzem, there's a concept of Eir. Und in der Eir liegt der etzem. This is where we want to get to. Says the thread of our Mamer, there's allowed to be such a musik of Eir, and the Eir itself carries that. The emes is, like Rabbi Reichik was saying before, that l'chayre, this is also meduyek in the Mamer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, because the Frierdiker Rebbe be'etzem also uses the lashon opening the Eitzer. He says always that when he describes what's going to happen with the Eitzer, he doesn't just talk about delivering the Eitzer. He says the Psarei Apkidim and Pkidei Achayil are going to open the Eitzer and give it to the Anshei Chayil. What's this business of opening it? It's l'chayre. I mean, certainly once we understand looking at the Eitzer in such a way that the etzem could be something that we could celebrate and appreciate, that's the touch opening it. Maybe let's just add one word. Till now we've been describing what's supposed to happen with the Eitzer, but who does it? So in the mashal of the Frierdiker Rebbe, there's three things over here. There's the Melech, there's the Anshei Chayil, and in between them there's Sarei Achayil or Pkidei Achayil. There's the commanders. And they are given the Eitzer, and it's their job to open the Eitzer and deliver it to the Anshei Chayil. Who are these Pkidei Achayil? So the Rebbe touched those. That's the Rabbi. This is what the Rebbe does. The job of the Rebbe is to take the etzem and to make it a golidiker etzem, to make it something which could be appreciated. In Pashte Werter, says do the etzem, but without the Rebbe, it would be good. A Yid hat etzem, sicher hat a Yid etzem. Netzach veit, Volk, das steht stark. But in order to be able to talk about the etzem and to appreciate what we have, that's in other words, hatev lanu tiftach, as the zolish nor zayna eitzer. It should be an eitzer which we could talk about and understand. Of them is do the pkidei achayil. Where and when do the pkidei achayil do it? In this Mamer Gufa. This is what the Rebbe just did. The Rebbe just opened the Eitzer. Spent a whole Mamer talking about the very fact that we could talk about the Etzem is the Pella of Chassidus. This is what the Rebbe does. By definition, Etzem should be something which is not up for discussion. There's nothing to talk about, it just is. Is gekommen the Rebbe and says, no, the Pkidei Achal are going to open the Eitzer for us. We're going to be able to dance and verbring and learn and discuss Etzem. To live with the Etzem. It's going to be a tzorch al tevlon. Let's just finish with one more nekuda, fascinating word.
Rabbi Klyne, can you repeat again? So, what is the answer to the question that the Rebbe asked? What is Tzarchei HaMelech?
What we're saying over here is that there is room for an union of Gilui Ein. No, L'cheira mitzad says do lamata adin tachlis. Yeah. So that's in the Moshel, that's the Tzarchei HaMelech. And we say that that's not the Eitzer. That's the way the Friedrich Rebbe describes it. Zogt the Rebbe as in the Lamata Adin Tachlis, there's also the Etzem. So that justifies having the Lamata Adin Tachlis also in Lifnei Atzimtzum. Now, maybe just to explain a bit more. It says in Samachei, it brings the Moshel HaMagid, that if there's a king who's not interested in anything, like we always say, a king is just misanig batzmus, he just is him. But his avodim want him to have a shaykhus with other things, so they come and the mishabeach for him some kind of narishkeit, and because the mishabeach it, so he turns towards it, shows interest. But once he shows interest, he comes with this whole etzem. Because when a king shows interest in something, you can never be in a place halfway. There's no such option. So, al derech zeh l'inyoneinu, the king is showing there's absat tzorech, there's an inyan of lamata adin tachlis, there is an inyan of gilui. But once there is that, he's there business off, and you could find him there. The inlet chila is also there. Meaning, there's a concept. Usually, let's just unpack this a bit better. The way we look at Yiddishkeit, we see there's two things. There's part of Yiddishkeit which is what we could understand and relate to, and even if we don't relate to it, mamish, we could understand that. We don't understand. It's the bligvul. There's the Mesiras Nefesh. It's wonderful. We could say Mesiras Nefesh story. I can't understand it, but I could describe it. Fakert ze gede me spailos a nefesh. Ze zayin from bligvul. Amefes v'chulu. Then there is just the fact I'm eat. That's just the etzem. That's like the dry fact, and that's what won't budge. That's the etzem. What the Rebbe is doing in our Mamer is that the big full that you have could be harnessed to appreciate the etzem. This etzem doesn't have to remain dry. We could dance with Medan. The Medan is that truk in the Zach. Adretz Medan, adretz the etzem. It just is. That's going to be a tzarchat tevlon. In the get liegen the etzem. In the ayin get liegen the menucha. So in the language over here, there's the Tzarchei HaMelech. There's the inyan of Lamata Adin Tachlis. In the Lamata Adin Tachlis, in the Tzarchei HaMelech, get Erzai. So that explains how we could have this Tzarchei HaMelech. It's very interesting. In the Sicha before this Mamer, Tashin Chav Beis, it's very emotional Sicha. The Rebbe said the Maisa, and the Rebbe was crying, like it was every few words the Rebbe was stopping. Story goes of the Chassidus Shiur, that the Friedrich Rebbe told this story to the Rebbe. That we have it in Rishimus, the way the Rebbe wrote it down then. that before his bar mitzvah, the Rebbe Rashab gave him a Mamer, Tibra Maschil, Morabu Masecha. He gave him the Mamer, he told him, this Mamer is a Chassidus Shiur. He said, what's the story? He said that when he was a child, there was the Poltava Rov was in the house, and the Rebbe goes into whole Arichis, that was a small house, a 2-bedroom apartment, and nowadays it's not like that, and everybody has a Akshama, whatever, but it was a small house, and he was learning with the Poltava Rov, and they came into discussion, Al Pi Nigla, the concept of Bonim, and then Al Pi Chassidus, what is Bonim, what is children? And then the Poltava Rov told the Rebbe Rashab that he sees the child, the Friedrich Rebbe, you could see from the beauty and the shine on his face for the clarity and the tahara in machshava. You could see that this child was born with tahara in machshava. So the Rebbe Nishmas Eidim was Nis'eirer with a strong rotzen, chayfetz for rotzen, and this is where the Rebbe Mamish started crying. With a chayfetz for rotzen to give nakush for the child. But then he decided that al derech in the Beis Hamikdash. There's the idea of giving karbonis and there's the idea of giving kesef v'zov to the Beis Hamikdash. He decided to change over this hergesh to write the Inyan in Chassidus. And that's when he sat down to write this Maimon Morabu Masech. And this is what he gave the Friedrich Rebbe before his bar mitzvah. So the Rebbe touched us, what's the Inyan of Morabu Masech? Why is that more than a Chassidish kush? Why is that more than a kush? What's that just a Chassidish kush? So the Neshikin is the Etzem HaKesher of a father with a son. The Morabu Masecha is the way it comes up in Ribui. You have Tafki in Daimim, you have more Ribui than in Semech, which is more than in Chai. You have the Ribui and Ivroim, and Tafki in Gilui, over there you bring out the Blikvul. The way the Blikvul came out in Gilui. So, I mean, it would be a chiddush to say it's not connected to this Mamer. The Mamer, it talks about Morabu Masech Havaya. That's mamish the theme over here. The way the Ribui is bringing out, the Blikvul is bringing out the Etzem. So it's a sikha worthwhile checking out. Okay. Yeah.
If I can ask you, the pashtus, just in very simple words. The Indian of the Oitzer is giving the Chayalim a boost, giving them certain pechus, right? Pechus, nashkim, whatever it is, to be able to do their avodah. The Rebbe is emphasizing on that it's the Oitzer is about the circumstances of not good gashmis. No, conditions should be good. Is that not what it means? Like it should be checked. The Oitzer is like without the conditions that we're living in. It's like
no, I hear what you're saying. That's not the way the Rebbe didn't touch Oitzer over here like that. You're right. Usually, when the Rebbe speaks Oitzer Hatev Lanu, it means that's also good begashmis. But I don't think it's a stira. That's just taking that same thing to the next level. So it's nicht not that we're going to be able to appreciate it. It's again in unsere gashmis. It's going to penetrate. In our day-to-day gashmistic life, but it's the same direction. In the lashon over here in the Hanoch is shamakabel yargish zel tev shalei. That's his good. I suppose, yeah. It's like till mamish this is gashmi is good, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Shekayach, Rabbi Bachman, thank you very much for arranging. It's your birthday?
Tonight.
Tonight, Mazel Tov.
Thank you. I appreciate the learning. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rabbi Klyne, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sehr gesund.
Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you.